A Sigma male's patience is legendary, calm, measured, and almost unshakable. But what most people don't realize is that his patience isn't infinite. It's controlled. It's tested. And when he finally reaches his breaking point, it's not loud. It's lethal. You see, when a Sigma male loses patience, he doesn't explode. He evolves. He goes silent, detached, and surgical with his decisions. The same man who once tolerated disrespect with calm observation now removes himself completely. No warnings, no arguments, no second chances. And that's when everyone around him starts to feel the shift. Because when the Sigma male is done, he's truly done, not out of anger, but out of absolute clarity. He doesn't seek revenge. He doesn't explain. He just disappears. And the silence that follows becomes his statement. People realize too late that his patience was their protection. And once it's gone, the dynamic changes forever. In this video, we'll break down what happens when a Sigma male finally loses patience and why it's a turning point no one forgets. Comment, "My silence has limits," if you've ever reached that point where calm turned into clarity. And don't forget to subscribe to UltraWise, because understanding your power starts with knowing when to stop giving second chances. He stops explaining and starts eliminating. When a Sigma male finally loses patience, it's not a sudden explosion. It's a quiet execution. He doesn't yell, argue, or defend his choices. He simply starts removing people, habits, and distractions that no longer align with his peace. For most of his life, he's tried to explain his intentions, his silence, and his way of thinking to those who never truly listened. But one day, something inside him just clicks. He realizes he doesn't owe anyone an explanation for protecting his energy. He realizes he doesn't owe anyone an explanation for protecting his energy. He's the kind of man who gives chance after chance, not because he's weak, but because he believes in understanding before judgment. He studies people, gives them space to grow, and tolerates more than he should. But the moment he recognizes that his patience is being mistaken for permission, everything changes. He stops reasoning with people who feed off drama. He stops negotiating with those who mistake his kindness for compliance. Instead, he observes quietly, makes his decision internally, and walks away like nothing happened. That's the part that shocks everyone, how calm he is when he's done. There's no warning, no emotional scene, no explanation, just distance. One day you have access to his time, his attention, his loyalty, and the next, it's gone. He doesn't argue about it because he's already analyzed the situation in silence long before you notice the shift. When he leaves, it's not a reaction, it's a resolution. The Sigma male doesn't eliminate out of bitterness, he does it out of clarity. He's learned that explaining yourself to people who don't respect you only drains your strength. So he stops talking about boundaries and simply enforces them. He doesn't block you out of spite. He just builds a life where your energy no longer fits. And that quiet removal hurts more than confrontation ever could. People often realize too late what his silence really meant. They thought he was passive. They thought they could push him forever. But the truth is, every time he went quiet, he was making a decision, collecting data, observing patterns, and preparing for the moment he'd finally let go. When a Sigma male stops explaining and starts eliminating, it's not revenge, it's evolution. Because he's done wasting words on people who were never ready to understand him in the first place. He withdraws his energy without warning. When a Sigma male withdraws his energy, it's never impulsive, it's calculated. He doesn't announce it, argue about it, or ask for acknowledgement. One day, he simply stops showing up the way he used to. The texts slow down, the attention fades, and the emotional presence that once held everything together quietly disappears. People often mistake his calm for disinterest, But what they don't see is that his withdrawal is the final chapter, the silent conclusion to a story he's already finished writing in his mind. The Sigma male's energy is sacred. He gives it intentionally, invests it carefully, and guards it fiercely. Once he realizes it's being wasted, for a long time he tries to understand, to fix, to hold things together. Whether it's a relationship, a friendship, or a project, he listens more than he speaks. He gives more than he receives. But there's always a point where something inside him breaks. Not loudly, but decisively. He stops explaining what's wrong because by then, he knows it won't matter. His mind has already detached long before his body follows. When he withdraws, it's not to punish, it's to preserve. His energy isn't a gift for everyone. It's a resource that demands respect. Once he feels it's being taken for granted, he reclaims it without hesitation. That's why his silence feels so heavy. Because it's not confusion, it's closure. There's no second guessing, no emotional back and forth, just stillness. The same stillness that once made him patient now becomes his armor. And when that withdrawal happens, people feel it instantly. His presence once carried stability, attention, and calm. And when that's gone, the absence feels like a void. The same people who dismissed him suddenly start to chase his attention again, wondering what changed. But they never realized that the moment he went silent, he was already gone. Sigma males don't do grand exits. They vanish like a power outage. Everything goes dark, and you're left realizing just how much light they brought into your space. By the time people understand what they lost, he's already rebuilding somewhere else. Quieter, stronger, and even more select. His energy isn't revenge, it's currency. And once he stops spending it on the unworthy, his peace becomes his profit. He no longer entertains excuses. When a Sigma male finally loses patience, one of the first things to go is his tolerance for excuses. He's heard them all. The broken promises, the half-hearted apologies, the endless "I'll do better" that never materializes into action. For a while he listens. He tries to understand. He even gives second chances because he believes that people can change if they want to. But when he realizes the pattern isn't changing, only repeating, that's when something inside him hardens. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. The Sigma male doesn't need perfection. He values honesty, effort, and accountability. But once he notices that someone keeps justifying their behavior instead of correcting it, he disconnects. To him, excuses are noise, empty words people use to avoid responsibility. And the Sigma has no time for noise. He doesn't argue or confront, he simply stops responding. It's not that he doesn't care anymore, it's that he finally understands caring won't change someone who refuses to grow. He's been there before, emotionally investing in people who say the right things but never back them up with real change. That's why he now pays more attention to consistency than charisma. He's seen how excuses drain energy, cloud judgment, and delay peace. So, when he hears another promise that sounds recycled, he doesn't react. He just mentally checks out. What's dangerous about a Sigma's silence is that it's permanent. Once he stops believing your words, you can't talk your way back in. There's no argument, no begging, no guilt-tripping that will make him return to a dynamic that cost him his peace. He's not walking away to punish you. He's walking away to protect himself from repetition. And when he does, he doesn't explain why. He knows that if you truly understood the damage your excuses caused, he wouldn't have to. His absence becomes the answer you didn't want to face. People often realize too late that the Sigma wasn't looking for perfect, he was looking for real. And once he sees that you'd rather justify than change, his patience ends where your accountability does. The moment a Sigma male stops entertaining excuses is the moment he reclaims his power. Because he knows that growth doesn't come from hearing promises. It comes from walking away from patterns. He turns emotion into strategy. When a Sigma male loses patience, he doesn't explode, he evolves. Instead of wasting time venting or reacting, he channels everything he feels into precision. The frustration, the disappointment, even the anger, all of it becomes fuel. He doesn't let emotion make him impulsive. He lets it make him focused. That's what separates him from everyone else. While most people fall apart when things don't go their way, the Sigma recalibrates. He's learned that emotion, when uncontrolled, becomes weakness. But when directed, it becomes power. Every experience that hurt him sharpened his mind. Every betrayal became data. Every rejection turned into information he could use. So when he feels that familiar burn of frustration, he doesn't drown in it. He studies it. He asks himself what went wrong, what patterns he missed, and how he can prevent it next time. Then he moves strategically. No noise, no pity, no drama, just adjustment. That's why people often underestimate the Sigma male until it's too late. They mistake his calm after being hurt as indifference. But what they don't see is the mental reconstruction happening behind that silence. He's building something stronger, a new plan, a better version of himself, a smarter path forward. His emotions don't paralyze him, they prepare him. When someone betrays him, he doesn't seek revenge. He lets time handle the exposure while he upgrades his own life. When an opportunity slips away, he doesn't complain, he studies why. To him, every loss is a blueprint for evolution. He doesn't run from pain, he rewires it. Because the Sigma understands something most people don't. Emotion is energy, and energy can always be redirected. So, while others waste their emotional storms on temporary reactions, he converts his into permanent progress. That's why he always bounces back stronger. It's not because he doesn't feel, it's because he's mastered what to do with what he feels. When a Sigma male turns emotion into strategy, he becomes unstoppable. Every disappointment becomes a calculation. Every mistake becomes a lesson. And every moment of pain becomes the quiet motivation behind his next success. He redefines silence as power. For the Sigma male, silence isn't a lack of words, it's a statement. When he finally loses patience, he stops wasting energy trying to be understood by people who've already proven they're not listening. His silence isn't submission, it's strategy. He's learned that the loudest person in the room often has the least control, and the one who stays calm usually holds all the power. Silence is his way of reclaiming that control. When he goes quiet, it's because he's done giving away free access to his thoughts and emotions. Every time he used to explain, argue, or prove a point, it cost him peace. And he's not paying that price anymore. Instead, he chooses stillness, because in silence, he can think clearly, observe patterns, and prepare his next move without interference. People often misread his calm as weakness. They assume his lack of reaction means he doesn't care. But what they don't realize is that silence is his filter. The moment he stops responding, he's already detached. He's analyzing who belongs in his life, who doesn't, and what lessons this situation just taught him. And when he does decide to speak again, his words carry weight, because he only speaks with purpose. The Sigma male knows that silence unnerves manipulators. It exposes insecurity. It forces truth out of people who rely on emotional chaos to stay in control. That's why his quiet composure feels intimidating. Not because he's trying to dominate anyone, but because he refuses to be pulled into noise. His silence turns into a mirror, reflecting everyone else's behavior back at them. Behind that stillness, though, he's far from passive. His mind is working, processing everything, planning his next steps, and cutting emotional ties without saying a word. He knows that distance teaches louder lessons than confrontation ever could. And when he finally walks away, his silence echoes longer than any speech. To the Sigma male, silence isn't the absence of power, it is power. It's restraint, control, and clarity all in one. He no longer needs to announce his boundaries or defend his worth. His silence is the proof that he's evolved beyond needing to be understood. When he redefines silence as power, he becomes untouchable. Because you can't manipulate someone who doesn't react. And you can't weaken a man who's learned to turn silence into strength. He stops trying to fix what drains him. There comes a moment when the Sigma male realizes that not everything broken deserves his effort. And that's the moment his entire energy shifts. He stops being the quiet fixer, the one who tolerates chaos in the name of loyalty, or who keeps pouring into people who never truly meet him halfway. For most of his life, he's believed that with enough patience, understanding, or consistency, things would eventually align. But when his patience runs out, so does his illusion that effort alone can fix dysfunction. He's been the one who stayed calm during storms he didn't create, the one who tried to understand instead of react, and the one who believed that peace could be restored if he just gave a little more. But one day, he realizes that the more he gives, the more some people take. And that's when he stops, not out of anger, but out of awareness. When the Sigma male stops trying to fix what drains him, he reclaims the energy that was being silently stolen. He starts using that energy to rebuild his own foundation, to strengthen his body, sharpen his mind, and refocus on his purpose. He learns that not every problem is his to solve, and not every person deserves to stay in his life just because he once cared. This shift confuses people who were used to his endless patience. They call him distant, cold, or selfish, not realizing that for the first time, he's simply being selective. He's no longer driven by guilt or obligation, he's driven by clarity. If something or someone consistently drains him, he doesn't argue, he doesn't fix, he simply removes himself. Because the Sigma knows that constantly fixing others is just another way of avoiding his own peace. He's done trying to resuscitate dead energy. Now he protects his focus like a fortress. He pours his time only into what feeds his growth, not what feeds his exhaustion. And that's what makes him powerful. Not the ability to fix what's broken, but the wisdom to walk away from what refuses to heal. Once the Sigma male stops trying to fix what drains him, everything around him changes. His circle gets smaller, his mind gets sharper, and his life gets quieter. But in that silence, he finds strength that can't be taken from him again. He becomes cold, but focused. When a Sigma male finally loses patience, something inside him changes, not in bitterness, but in clarity. He stops reacting from emotion and starts operating from calculation. The warmth he once offered freely now has conditions. He's no longer the man who tolerates disrespect disguised as jokes, or inconsistency disguised as mistakes. His calmness becomes colder, his priorities sharper, and his tolerance almost non-existent. But that coldness isn't cruelty, it's control. He's learned the hard way that emotion can blur vision. The same empathy that made him understanding also made him a target. So now, he channels all that emotion inward, into discipline, focus, and results. He doesn't argue, he doesn't chase, he doesn't try to make people see his worth anymore. His energy goes into creation, not conversation. While others waste time explaining themselves, the Sigma builds silently. His coldness is not emotional distance, it's emotional direction. When he becomes focused, distractions fade. The opinions of others lose their weight. He doesn't crave recognition, validation, or reassurance because he's learned that peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being aligned. Every goal, every move, every habit becomes intentional. He cuts noise, people, and habits that don't serve the mission. And if that makes him seem cold, so be it. He's not here to please anyone. What most people don't understand is that the Sigma male's coldness is a response to pain, not a personality trait. It's the product of giving too much, forgiving too easily, and waiting too long. Now, that same energy fuels his drive. The time he once spent fixing others, he now spends mastering himself. The emotions he once wasted trying to be understood now power his ambition. This new version of him doesn't chase peace. He embodies it. His calmness is unsettling to those who once thrived on his reaction. His silence feels dangerous because it's filled with purpose. When he goes cold, it's not because he's lost his heart. It's because he's learned where to use it wisely. The Sigma male's coldness isn't the absence of emotion. It's emotion refined, sharpened, and disciplined. And that's why, when he finally becomes cold, he becomes unstoppable. He walks away and never looks back. When a Sigma male finally reaches his breaking point, his exit is quiet but final. There's no warning, no dramatic goodbye, no emotional explanation. One day, he's simply gone. And when he walks away, he doesn't leave out of anger. He leaves out of realization. He's realized that no amount of patience can fix disrespect, and no amount of love can survive constant disappointment. His silence isn't revenge, it's closure. For the Sigma male, walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. He's seen enough cycles to know when something is beyond repair. He's learned that staying in toxic spaces doesn't make him loyal, it makes him lost. So he chooses distance over dysfunction, clarity over chaos. And when he walks away, he does it with complete peace because he's already grieved the loss long before he left. People rarely see it coming. They mistake his calm for compliance. They think his silence means he'll always stay. But the Sigma is a long observer. While others talk, he notices. And by the time he leaves, he's already emotionally detached. The same person who once listened to every word, who forgave every mistake, now feels nothing. That's when those who took him for granted realize what they've lost. Not just his presence, but his energy, his loyalty, and his quiet strength. He doesn't look back because he doesn't need closure from anyone. He's found it in the peace that follows distance. There's no curiosity about how others feel, no need to check who misses him, no desire to prove his worth. When the Sigma male walks away, it's because he's done investing in what drains him. That's what makes his silence so powerful. It's not an escape, it's evolution. He knows that not everyone deserves access to his growth, and not every ending deserves an explanation. His detachment becomes his declaration. He's finally chosen himself. And once he walks away, there's no coming back. Not out of pride, but out of peace. Because when a Sigma male leaves, it's not to hurt others. It's to protect the version of himself that almost disappeared, trying to stay. When a Sigma male finally loses patience, it's not a loud explosion. It's a quiet shift. He doesn't argue, he doesn't explain, and he doesn't seek closure. He simply outgrows the chaos that once surrounded him. What used to trigger him now teaches him. What used to drain him now motivates him. And what used to hold him back no longer gets his attention. That calm detachment, that silent strength, that's what makes him untouchable. If you've ever felt yourself reaching that point, the moment you stop trying to be understood and start focusing on your own peace, you're not becoming colder, you're becoming clearer. You're finally learning what the Sigma learned, that walking away isn't giving up. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, Don't forget to subscribe to UltraWise. Here we talk about power, discipline, and quiet transformation. The mindset that builds men who move in silence but leave a lasting impact. Stay focused, stay grounded, and remember, your silence is your strength. Comment below. My silence says more than my words ever could.